I really think you hit the nail on the head when it comes to grief. So before we kind of jump into like the emotions behind it, what was it about the story and the script that really drew you in and made you want to be a part of it?
Well, I think well, when I first read the script, I felt I mean, one thing is I liked the voice. I liked the way the characters talked. I liked the dynamic that was written between the family. Um, I liked the way it covered this idea of loss. Like I thought it really spoke about it in an honest way and was relatable. But I felt there was enough there that I could kind of make it also bring my own personal experiences from of dealing with loss in my family. But the way I deal with my family members, like there's just a lot of stuff that just felt very true to my own experiences. And I think also when people see the film, that people bring up experiences of loss and say it was done in a way that was like tasteful and honest and like relatable for their own experiences. So I guess like hopefully my hope was we could make a movie that people felt sort of call it like some form of like I'm not alone or comforted by a story that sort of deals with this subject matter in a way that does kind of feel like familiar to people. Um, but the yeah, like when you read a script, I think you can tell right away. I think like, can I see myself making this movie? Is this something I want to watch? Like, how would I approach kind of working with these actors or these characters that I want to invest myself in? Yeah, so it had all that for me, and I think that was the jumping off point. By the way, I'm just keep going. I'm going to mute something in the background.
Okay. Um, Tackling
Sorry.
grief is one of those things that's just very complicated, because there's this element of like we're fine, but we're not really fine, and like people are doing it wrong. They're not doing it like how I'm doing it, but it's a very internal thing. So, what was it like taking something very internal to the characters and have it be completely different, and then bringing it to the screen?
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, the blueprint. I mean, the script that we're working with would be like the blueprint, and I think that Brett did a great job of I think of creating characters that I think you could kind of feel this internal struggle they were having with the surface relationships they have with their fellow family members versus their own sort of internal battles and struggles of overcoming their own five stages of grief, like denial into acceptance. Like you could see all the characters have their own version of these experiences. Um, but I think I really love the relationship between myself as a director working with actors. I really enjoy very much the collaborative creating a collaborative environment. It's not just like, hey, I want it to be like this, that's that, thank you so much, do it like this or something. I don't That's not how I look at making movies. I want everybody to feel that they're in a very safe collaborative kind of environment, and that we can come prepared, know the lines, know the scene, do your work, but let's discover this together and see where we can go. I mean, I also like, with shaping as a director, like shaping the film you saw, like shaping those performances was about getting a little bit of variation as well in their performances. So we had versions and layers to work with because, you know, you never know how something's going to play on the screen. It can read very well and it can work very much on the page, but when you actually see it, when it gets up on its feet or you see it within the context of the film, just the flow of the film, the pacing, this line, is it landing? Do I need it? Do I get it? Maybe when they look at each other, they say the line in their eyes, and I don't even need the line. There's like things you do in the edit too to kind of find it. But yeah, I mean, like, I think what I want as a director is I want the ability to mold and shape and push and pull and find what is this movie when I'm in the edit. And I think that like I want to be able to have variations in these performances. And So I think you seeing this movie as a full put together film, this would be the sort of like the result of getting to a place where we tried to find sort of balance in the tone and what the arc was for these different characters, and make sure that you as an audience member can feel invested in not only Nick's journey, but his relationship with his father, his sister, understanding what his mother meant to him, seeing similarities in the Alex Ship character and the love connection of this sort of great kind of playfulness and escape that she gives him. So yeah, it's all like orchestrating. It's like conducting an orchestra, but you want to find that great harmony and balance to tell a story that feels balanced, that resonates, and helps make you, the audience, feel something very emotional.
And I I did for sure. It's one of those. I also experienced grief when I was younger, so the funeral scene with the relatives
Yeah,
fighting and all that stuff feels very very familiar. So again, thank you for
yeah,
kind of
yeah. No, of course.
bringing back those emotions, but in
No, I really appreciate you saying
um,
that. And
one thing
by
that I
the
really
way,
liked about
well, there's nothing. It's so meaningful, I think, to make a movie that I think is like, even if someone hasn't experienced loss in their life, I think there's still a lot to gain from being able to actually experience characters going through their version of grieving, because it can also make you really appreciate and value the things we have every day around us a little bit more too, which I think is really nice. So
for sure is um, one thing that I really loved was the focus on the teacup and the saucer and the little spoon, and how it was three parts. And I don't know if this was intentional, but at the end, when Ren goes in and steals it back, each of the family members carries a piece of that. Um, and it's one of those things that it was like so simple, but it was so
yeah,
moving at the same time.
yeah.
Um, was that your intention to like have them all come back as a family with the pieces of the teacup? Yep, yep.
Yeah, no, I for that, again, I go back to the script and I shout out Brett's work as a writer. I think that it's the little things that matter the most. I mean, that was my takeaway was, you know, there are sometimes these things that we encounter in our lives, these objects that trigger these emotions. And I think this movie is a series of memories being triggered by experiences. Like where he's back in Cleveland and he drives by a restaurant, he remembers us eating lunch there with his mother. It's a lot of these like triggers of like things that he just recently went through with her, these kind of fresh memories on his mind that he wishes he could have again and do have extend and relive again and again. But the same thing goes for these like objects that are that we take with us, and we think you know these objects, just like music, can be a very like comforting thing, I think, to hold someone's like shirt again, or that smell, that scent that that person wore trigger smells like, it reminds me of something. So I think for them, that the takeaway was, we put an emphasis sometimes on these good on objects around us that we think we need in our lives, because without this, what do we have? And if you strip it all back, what are the things we really need? What are the things of real importance? And if they have this one chance to take something with them, what is that thing going to be? And there's something really beautiful that it's these objects that she in a comedic way in her own life thought it was kind of fun and playful to take a spoon from a place, or these little treasures along the way that she carried with her, as small as they are and as simple as they are, I think have a bigger impact on the family as far as their memory of her and the fun they had. And I think it's a beautiful scene that they all take one thing from a set recently that she had taken. They all carry one thing with them, and together it's a complete idea.
Yeah. It honestly, that might be my favorite part of the whole movie.
Oh, amazing. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
Um, I love how Darren goes at the beginning of the film about quotes and how we can't find words for things. And that's another thing within grief that really resonates with, I think, everybody. So I was just wondering, is there a quote that you use frequently? It doesn't have to be involving grief, but something that you frequently turn to when you can't find the words.
Um, well, I like, like the character in the film that Nick plays, like, I lost a parent, from cancer at a young age, and we like I'm always reminded, like, that person, my dad passed away, but it's sort of like, he never left, because I'm always just every day thinking or reminded of him and experiencing things that trigger a feeling of like still being there with me. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, to me it was just like the words, like, of the things that were important to him in his absence, like the things he wanted for us as his kids. I think those ideas that were important to him always are of importance to me. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's like a line or a word or a thing. I mean, I'm sensitive to numbers and ideas of carrying someone with you and not forgetting the person, and all these things. I think that's what I hold closest to me, Um, but it's tricky when someone, I guess I'm so, having lost a parent at a young age, it's not a good thing to get sort of call it used to it or something. Like, I don't want to be used to loss in some way, because every experience of loss is unique, is its own experience. Um, but I think that, like, um, I don't know, like when you go through it as a young person, unfortunately you get a little bit, you kind of grow some muscles or something. And I think you just like develop a little bit of like a thick skin sometimes, which I'm not like always proud of. But the I think that there was something I was going to say to this point, that that I get very sensitive to what to say to people when they've lost somebody, because there's this idea, there's this idea of what you're not supposed to say or what you're supposed to say. And I think sometimes loss is a tricky thing, in that it's also hard to know how to navigate it with other people around you. Like, how are you supposed to act? What is being sensitive? What is not being sensitive? How can I show this person that I care? What is what is I don't want to demonstrate caring to the point where they feel worse. It's just like such a tricky, delicate balance. That's the hard part. It's also, it's not just losing someone directly, it's also losing someone through people close to you and how to deal with their loss. And it's tricky, it's hard. Loss is it's a very strange thing. Losing somebody, it's like you can't, there's nothing like it. And it's hard to explain loss to people, like when they're like, what's it, my wife's parents are alive and I see them a lot, and I think she's very sensitive to my father having passed away. But I always remind her to, like, I know your dad's bothering you right now, but like try to, like, make the best of it, or like enjoy him while you have him. So having lost people, I think you become more sensitive to like realizing what you have now and trying to enjoy it to the max. So
No, I feel that. Yeah, no, I lost my mom when I was young. So
yeah, you
uh,
could connect to it.
everything you just said, I'm like, I felt
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's why it's important. I mean, you don't have to be an astronaut to direct a movie about space travel, but I think having some direct relationship to this emotional experience has been beneficial to helping me tell a story that is somewhat relatable, for someone like yourself who's experienced something like this. If you felt, yeah, like this movie like gets me, like I totally know this moment, that's important. Like, I don't know how someone else would have made that movie or told this story, but I tried to pull from my own experiences that I think are real to me, and I tried to direct the actors to get out of them things that I felt I saw and experienced for myself, to stay true to what this experience is. So hopefully that was helpful.
But no, it was, this movie kind of felt like a nice weighted blanket.
Yeah,
It was,
right.
it was like warm and fuzzy, but it was also like they understand me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's important. Yeah.
No, but it was great. Also, as an Ohioan, always got to shout out Cleveland. So
Yeah, yeah.
that was
And by
also
the way, Brett, someone asked at the Q&A Tribeca, like, what's your problem with Cleveland? And it was like, no, no, Brett's from Cleveland. Like, this is, I think there's just some fun to be had, just like going back to Cleveland, and like he lives in LA now, and it's a different world out there. So
yeah. My only thing is when I fly into Cleveland, I always see that mural of Cleveland
I
at the
know we
baggage
wanted.
claim. I was like, oh, it's not there.
I know we couldn't afford it. I mean, we were a small movie, so we couldn't. We just, when you're a smaller movie budget wise, you have to get really creative with like how you shoot. Like the idea of shooting at an airport on a little indie movie is like, I don't want to say little indie movie, but we're an indie movie. Like compared to other movies, we're a much smaller budget, and I think that that's something to shout out because this cast is incredible in this movie, and Nick, tours and does big shows, and he's like a very, does very well as a person. He's a person who's very well known. So to say yes to like an indie movie and really go for it is a really like a great celebration of like independent cinema for everybody. Independently made movies should be celebrated, and I think like we wanted to shoot Superman and get the mural and all these things, but we just couldn't find a way to do it. So the next best thing is you shoot them from behind, and hopefully it's raining. We got lucky, but that it rained in LA. That was in LA, by the way. So
Well, did a good job of making it look like the Midwest.
a little bit, yeah, overcast. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.